All right, so today we are talking about solving systems with addition. And sometimes it's not good to solve a system by substitution because you have a variable or a constant in front of the variable. So sometimes it's easier to do the solving by this direction. Okay, so the first thing you need to know when you're solving by addition is you need to write both equations in ax plus by equals c form. Okay, that's important. That would be step number one. Okay, the second step is multiply either equation or both equations by an appropriate number so that the sum of the x coefficients or the sum of the y coefficients is 0. I'll explain that in just a minute. I'm going to show you that. Then you add the two equations together, and when that happens, one of them cancels out. One of the variables cancel out, and then you can solve for that variable. Okay, step 5, once you've solved for that variable, you can back substitute it in to solve for the other variable. So those are the steps that you need to take. I'm just going to scroll it down a little bit here. You can actually, you don't have to write this whole thing down. You can maybe, I could show you by example, okay? So on this equations, notice that there is not really any simple way for me to solve for x or y. I could, but you'd end up with some kind of fraction involved, so it would be a little bit messy to do it by substitution. So I'm going to use the addition method. And I'm going to look at the second equation because it would be pretty easy for me to multiply that entire second equation by a -2. When I do that, I'm going to rewrite this. I'll end up with a -4x. And notice the equation above it. What's the x value up there? It's a positive 4x, right? So the two x's will cancel. So do you guys see why I picked a -2x, -2 to multiply? I'm trying to find something that will allow me to cancel out either the x or the y. Okay? So this cancels. When I add these two together, I get what? Oh, this should be a +6, by the way. This will be 11y equals -11. So what's my y value going to be in this case? -1. Yep. Okay. So I have y equals -1. How do I find my x? Yep, I'm going to back substitute it in. Does it matter which equation I put it into, the top or the bottom? It doesn't. I can pick either one. It depends on what you feel like at the moment, okay? So I'm going to put in the top one. 4x plus 5 times -1 equals 3. So 4x minus 5 equals 3. If I solve for this, it'll be 4x equals 8 or x equals 2. So what's my solution for this? Be 2 and -1 is my point. Okay? Any questions? Okay, there is a problem with this set of equations. What's the problem? Well, if you're doing it by substitution, you have to have a variable by itself. What was the first step I have to have it in? Standard form. Are these in standard form? No. So I need to make sure I get those put in standard form. So I'm going to add 4y to both sides on the first one. I'll have 3x plus 4y equals 2. Okay. On the second one, I need to make sure the x's come first. I'm going to add 2x to both sides. So I'll have 2x plus 5y equals -1. Okay, now I have this part done, but we have another problem. If I only multiply one of my equations, they still don't cancel out. So on this one, I need to think of it like I do with a common denominator. What would be my least common factor if I try to cancel out my x's? What do I need them to multiply into? 6. So, and one of them needs to be negative. So if I multiply the bottom one by a -3 and the top one by a 2, we'll solve that problem. Okay? So 2 times 3x is 6x. 2 times 4y is 8y equals 2 times 2, which is 4. That's the top equation. The bottom equation will be minus 6x. -3 times 5 is -15y. And -3 times -1 is 3. So see how my x's now are canceling out? Get rid of those. So 8y plus -15y is, well, one's negative, one's positive, so we're actually subtracting. So it'll be -7y equals 7, and y is -1. So I'm going to solve for x. What would be my easiest equation to pick on the up here to solve for x with? Yeah, the top one, because it's almost there, but not quite. It's got x's kind of by itself. So it'll be 2 minus 4 times -1. So it'll be 2 plus 4, because -4 times -1 is positive. So 3x equals 6, and x is 2. So my solution to this is 2, -1. There are some times where you will solve for x or y and find that there is no solution or infinite number of solutions. And what does that really mean? Well, when we solve for one solution, that's where they intersect, right? So this is for one solution. But when you come up with one where there's no solutions, that means the two lines don't ever cross and they're parallel. If it's infinite many solutions, that means it's the same exact line. Okay? So those three instances could happen in any of these times. Okay? So let's solve for this one. What can I multiply by to cancel out either one of these? Good, yeah. Multiply the top one by -3. So that'll be -3x minus 6y equals -12. Okay? And if I write the second one down below it, notice what happens to both my x's and y's. They both cancel, so I'm left with 0 equals 1. So what does that tell me? No solution. No solution, and that also tells me that the two lines are what? Parallel. Okay? On the second one, what am I going to do first? What's wrong with this one? Not in, right, it's not in standard form. So we need, first of all, write it that way. So it'll be 4x, -4x, if I subtract 4x from both sides, plus y equals -4. And 8x minus 2y equals 8. What do I need to multiply by? By a 2. Okay? So if I multiply this by 2, I have -8x plus 2y equals -8. And then 8x minus 2y equals +8. What happens to everything? This cancels, this cancels, this cancels. That means I have 0 equals 0. Is that a true statement? Yeah, so that means it's a same line. It's infinite solutions. Same line. It doesn't have to be a horizontal line. It could just be the exact same line. And it also means, oh, another way you can see this is all real numbers. Okay, every company, when they come up with a product, it costs them something to make it. So when you're looking at a cost function, that's this one right here, C of X always equals the fixed cost, which is the cost of running the company, besides what it costs to make the unit. Okay, what it costs to run the company would include mortgage, rent, salaries, stuff like that. Okay, to make the unit would include the materials that you had to pay for to make the unit, stuff like that. Okay, the revenue function is how much you are paying per unit. Okay, so these two things are really important in this because we need to look at what point does the revenue equal the cost. That's called the break-even point. If your break-even point is too high or takes too long to get to, are you going to invest in that particular product? No. Okay, it has to have a quick turnaround. Okay, so here's an example. A company that manufactures running shoes has a fixed cost of $300,000. Additionally, it costs $30 to produce each pair of shoes. Okay? Now, is that information, does that go into our cost or our revenue? Where does that go? Cost or revenue equation? Yep, that goes into our cost. So C of X equals, and it's going to be 300,000 plus 30X, because it's $30 per pair of shoes. Okay, that's our cost function. Okay, the second part says write the revenue function. Well, my revenue function of this, how much are they selling the shoes for? 80. So it'll be 80X. Part C says determine the break-even point. When does C of X equal R of X? Well, there's two things you could do here. You could graph them, but in this case it would be even easier just to set them equal to each other. So 80X equals 300,000 plus 30X. Solving for X, I have 50X on this side. And then my X is, if I divide by 50, I think it's 6,000. So what does that answer tell us? What does that represent? Yeah, they have to sell 6,000 pairs of shoes in order to break even. Okay? Often, if you, I know probably all of you guys have been involved at some point in some fundraising thing, right? And if you're fundraising for like band or for some sport or whatever, they always have to come up with how many they need you to sell in order to break even or to make a profit of a certain amount. So this type of calculation is done quite frequently in real world, okay? The next part of this is to figure out what is the profit function, okay? So the profit function is always taking the revenue minus the cost. We're going to write this out as a function. It's going to be, first of all, our revenue amount was 80X, right? Minus our cost function, which was 300,000 minus 30X, or plus 30X. That would be our profit function. If I put this together, I'm going to end up with 50X because this negative goes through here, minus 300,000. Now, if I put in 6,000 into this profit function right now, what would be my profit? 0, right, because that's my break even. Okay? So that's the profit function. Yeah, this is because what I did is I took my Rx, which was 80, minus my Cx, which was that whole thing. Okay, because it was asking me at the bottom here, it was asking me to find the profit function. Okay, I know that there's at least a couple problems like that in your homework today. Really recommend you guys work on those because I'm pretty sure it's on the quiz. No, you're going to actually write the equation. Well, in terms of this, yeah, you need to know this. Okay? Always know your profits are always what you earn minus what you spend. Maybe that will help you. Okay? The next one I wanted to show you guys is a couple problems that, oops. Oh, it disappeared on me. Guess I didn't save it. Here we have an example of two distinct numbers that we need to find out what they are. They've given us some clues, and we need to write this out in math. It's in English right now. So let's look at the first sentence. It says the sum of the first number, x, and 2 times the second number, y, is 12. We have some clues here. First of all, sum, what does that mean? Addition. So I'm going to add these two numbers. So it says the sum of the first number, x, 2y equals 12. That's my first sentence. Okay. When 2 times the second number, so 2y, is subtracted from 3 times the first number, 3x, the result is 12. So I have two equations here, and I need to solve them in order to find my x and y. What would I do to solve this one real quick? Do I need to multiply by anything? You could multiply by a -3, but notice your y's, they're already cancelable. Okay? So I can just go like this, cancelable. It's my own new word. Okay, so 4x equals 24. X is 6. Okay? So now I know my x. I need to put it back in to find my y. I have 6 plus 2y equals 12. 2y would equal 6. Y is going to be 3. There's my two numbers. So there's one like this on the quiz tomorrow too. Just make sure you can take it from English and set it up. Once you get it set up, it's pretty easy.